So it's a good looking van. It has a rebuilt engine and a rebuilt transmission. 199,000 on the odometer, but less than 10,000 miles on the engine and transmission. And I had a Jasper Crate engine installed onto the interior build out. It's really efficient. I put a lot of thought into maximizing the space and the efficiency because it's really not that big of a van. So I worked really hard to get all of these things to fit the way they do. And I want to mention the plywood because it's a really special kind of plywood. It's called Pure Bond. They don't use any chemicals. It's got a soy-based glue. And what happened was I put in one floor. The first floor that I put in was with a cheaper kind of plywood. And I noticed it stunk. And I did some research and I realized that a lot of the cheaper plywoods have all kinds of chemicals in them, and some of them might even have formaldehyde. And it would just off gas into the van for perhaps indefinitely. And I knew I would get sick. So I had to rip out the first floor and then start from scratch with Pure Bond. And I was really proud of that decision. And I don't know how many people realize that, but like cheaper wood can off gas into the van. And as someone who's personally very sensitive to chemicals, I would be irritable all the time and I might not even know why. And so whoever gets into this vehicle is not going to have that problem. But I'm sure there's a lot of vans out there where you have that problem because of cheaper building supplies and stuff. And I did a lot of research. You know, it took a lot of effort to figure that all out. So that's a big point. And I'll move on to the Renogy package next. There's a lithium iron phosphate 200 amp hour battery there, and it's hooked into a solar charger that is charging from the solar panels and the alternator. So it's a DC to DC dual 50 amp charger, 2000 watt inverter, and so that'll handle almost anything you plug into it. Carbon monoxide detector. And that's hooked into, the battery's hooked into a 12 volt switch panel. And the fridge is running on 12 volt because it's more efficient. This Iceco fridge will run on regular as well, but 12 volt is more efficient. So I went with that, and the fan and lights are on that switch panel. And this has intake and exhaust setting. It's a good fan. It's a max fan and it doesn't leak. I sealed it all properly. Next, I'll move on to the insulation. So that's Havelock wool, and it's in every nook and cranny from the front to the back of the van. You can see it in these areas where it's exposed. But on top of that, there's Thinsulate, which is a white puff with a black cloth. And I mostly chose that for looks because of the way that it covers the van. And I didn't finish this side. I finished the other side and I'll show you, but I didn't finish this side because when you put a mattress there, it covers that anyways. And I didn't want to mess around like taking all this back out because I was eager to move into the van at the time. And I also thought it would be a little tricky putting Thinsulate over and then screwing these back in to the wall over Thinsulate would be a bit of a hassle. So if you don't care how it looks, the van's pretty well insulated anyways, and it wouldn't be an issue. But if you do want to Thinsulate over all of that, you'll just have to unscrew these drawers, unscrew from the wall, and you could get back there easily. The bed would be a hassle to move, but it moves. It's not bolted in hardcore or anything. And then on this side, the Thinsulate covers everything. So all the way up to the front corner here to the back and everything in between. And whenever there's a gasket here, I tucked it underneath and then glued it in place. So it's really nicely done. Like looking at all of the around the window seal, I used black caulking. See that? And I used patches of Thinsulate to cover it all perfectly. So it's nice, soft, and looks great. And with these windows, it just looks better than most setups in any other vans that I've seen. And the best part is the way that it covers the wheel well, because if you use plywood, you'll end up with a big boxy wheel well, but this, it covers it nicely. And there's room for some more storage down there. It looks good. And I don't think the Thinsulate provides a lot of thermal or sound deadening, but it probably provides a little bit, and it looks good. And I think the black also makes it feel a little less claustrophobic in here, because it's not a tight space, but it's not, you know, it's not a big van either. Onto the bed next, it has 3 legs, and I really like this design. I came up with this design with a friend of mine. There's 3 V-shaped legs, and I chose 3 to maximize the amount of space underneath here, and also they're V-shaped to maximize the amount of points where it's supported, because I didn't want it to warp at all, so that gives it a bit more weight tolerance. And then these tubs fit almost perfectly. There's like a 1/2-inch gap, so the bed is as low as I could get it, giving the maximum amount of headroom. So for when you're sitting on the bed, you don't have to worry about, you know, tilting your neck. I have plenty of headroom. There's a heater in the back. You can see the hose for it there, but I'll show you the heater when we go around to the back door. It's a diesel heater that was installed professionally. Next, I'll tell you about the kitchen here, because this is a 14-gallon stainless steel tank, which is good because your water is not sitting in plastic, right? And also 14 gallons could probably last a month on average. The beauty about this design here is that this is your sink. I sealed all of this, all these points. I waterproofed this whole thing so I could use this as a sink basin. So when you're opening this, I could do my dishes right here and then have the water just kind of spill out the van onto the ground. And there's a shelf counter there. Grill fits in the door. I would just open the countertop, pull the grill out. I could do my prep there. I have my sink, and there's your kitchen. So being that it's kind of a small van, I didn't want to put a kitchen inside, but here it is. And the only thing that you would probably really want to upgrade is adding a canopy over it, and you could just install a roll-out canopy on top. See how this overhangs? I designed the roof rack myself. It's a custom roof rack, and we'll get to that later, but it overhangs. That way you could very easily bolt a canopy onto it and then have your outdoor kitchen. You're standing, you're cooking, and you're dry. You're protected. So that was the idea there, and that's just one small thing that the next owner would have to finish. Here's a visual of the diesel heater that was installed professionally, so it has an all-metal base plate. It won't melt or catch fire. And you can use the hose to aim the heat into the living space. Here's a quick shot of the wiring on the battery terminals. I wanted to show you because the whole electrical setup was installed by a professional electrician that I hired, and he was good. He knew what he was doing. And a quick look at the wire that runs from the starter battery all the way back to the house battery. So that charges from the alternator to the Renogy battery. Another thing is all of these window inserts that I made. here, they fit perfectly into all the windows. So they're made out of Reflectix, and they'll protect you from the sun, heat from the sun, and they provide some thermal insulation in here and privacy. So it was really nice having all the windows, and it's also really nice being able to cover them at night especially. Next, I'll talk about the roof rack because it's a really nice custom roof rack. I built it myself, and I fabricated all these metal parts. Yeah, it's rusty. That doesn't matter though. I built these to clamp onto the rain guard there, and then it's got 4 crossbars, right? And then you can see that most of it's covered with this corrugated signboard, and yeah, it's a little dirty and bowed, but it's not meant to support weight. It's just a corrugated signboard. It's just there to give the solar panels some floor to rest on, because these are the thin panels. They're flex. They're twice as much as regular panels, but they're the same wattage, 100 each. And I had to kind of create this wind splitter in the front. So the front has this triangular piece, and it doesn't make any sound when you're driving, and it splits the wind, helps protect the panels, and I think it should last a good long time because none of this stuff is wobbly at all. It's very solid, and I think it looks a lot better than any of the market roof racks, except for like there's a couple that look kind of good that have a low profile like this one, but that's the thing, is this has a very low profile and it's sleek. And with the flex panels, you can hardly see them from ground level, and it might just look like a utility van. So stealth is a big plus with this vehicle, because if you look at it from afar, you won't see the solar panels unless you're above it. And I was parked one day with a friend of mine, and we overnighted in a parking lot, and he got a knock, and I didn't. And so that meant that the owner walked right past my van, probably thinking it was a utility van, and knocked on my friend's Sprinter van and kicked him out. So this van definitely has stealth going for it. It also has a tow hitch that's hooked up. It has mud tires on the back. No mud tires on the front, just on the back, because it's rear wheel drive, and it wasn't worth the money to put mud tires on the front. So I just put them on the back, and then I broke them in, and I'm able to get off of the grass, the wet grass, and there's new tires on the front. I just had those put on this summer. So the other thing I wanted to mention is that there's no salt damage, because this vehicle is in Massachusetts right now, but it grew up in Florida, and then it lived in Tennessee. And then I bought it, and I moved up to Massachusetts less than a year ago. So it only did one winter up here, and I just had it looked at. The mechanic put it on a lift and was checking for leaks. He didn't find any leaks, and he told me that the undercarriage looks fantastic, and he was surprised. And I told him, well, I'm not from here. It's a Florida van. And he said, that makes sense. That explains it. So the van's in great shape. I don't even want to get rid of it. I'm just getting rid of it because I'm leaving the country, and I obviously can't take it with me. So I think van life is just not in the cards for me anymore, and that's okay, because I did get some use out of it, and I'm just looking forward to other things now. So I hope to get a serious offer from somebody who can appreciate this rig for what it is, because if you think about it, I really did make a lot of good choices, and I knew what I was doing before I made them. So I know that most people would build it very differently according to how they see fit, because everybody's got their own vision of how things should be, and I get that. But anybody who can appreciate what I did to this vehicle is going to enjoy it. That's everything. I can't think of much else. I put put a lot of money into the van, you know, all in all, over $20,000. I put a lot of labor into the van, over 100 hours for sure. And I put a lot of thought into it. You know, I lived in it for a little while, and I was constantly making upgrades and switching things out and improving things. So it's got a lot of little stuff, you know, like this door handle. If you're interested, just message me or leave a comment, and let me know if you have any questions.